I also was a teacher, of course, a long time. I taught at Inha University for 6 years and other places here in Korea. I lived in Korea for 12 years and I had to go home in 2014 because I became very sick. But I'm back now and I'm starting to feel better. And I'd like to just give you a little bit of a message here of, I cannot quote Bible passages and like these other people, but I have been and I am becoming more and more. Well, actually, before I begin, I know we have a delegation here from Nepal. Is everybody from Nepal? Okay, so anyway, I grew up in Chicago. I lived most of my life in Chicago. I have moved to International Falls, Minnesota. It's right on the border of the Minnesota and Canada. The nickname of our town is the Icebox of America. It gets very cold there. Sometimes minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, which is minus 50 Celsius almost. The winter is very cold, and but it's also beautiful. You know, well, we'll get to that later. But I live right on a lake. My passion is fishing for fish. I'm not qualified to fish for a man yet, like they say in the Bible. But anyway, I've moved up there, and this is my first opportunity to come back to Korea after such a long time, and I really miss this country. For anybody, you newcomers, I'm sure you will find happy memories in this place. You know, I know you are all, everybody here is a student or a teacher, yeah? No, you didn't have to study hard. You studied hard, but there's so much to see, and you come from a different culture. Me too. In my life, I've traveled all over the world. I lived in Africa for 4 years, Western Africa, Hawaii and Mexico, Canada, a little bit in South America. I worked for an environmental company, and they sent me to do different projects all over the world. And I found that what you have to do is you have to embrace the culture wherever you go. It's not good to compare. Don't compare your culture to the one to where you are at now. I found, I've never tried to compare America to the Ghanaian culture when I lived in Ghana, or the Nigerian culture. I try to embrace the people around me, and it's very important. And I'm sure you will find this place very nice. And I'm sure your countries, I'd love to visit Nepal. Where else are some of you from?
India.
India, what part?
North India.
North India, okay. I'm a friend of Dr. Anbu, I don't know if you know him. Anbu, yeah. We used to share an office together at Inha. He's Chennai, he's the south side. Yeah.
We are from Bangladesh.
Bangladesh! I had some good friends from Bangladesh. I can't remember his name. He's probably graduated already, PhD. But he used to bring me mutton meat from the halal butcher. Yeah, I am alone, and I would say, bring me some mutton. And he'd bring me a leg of lamb, so big I couldn't put it in my freezer. Yeah. Oh, I forget his name. He was such a nice guy. He went fishing with me one time. Anyway, I'm not here to tell you about that. Anybody else from a different country? Bangladesh, Nepal, India, huh? Korea, of course. Okay.
Two Chinese he will come.
Huh?
Two Chinese he will come. Now is coming.
Who?
Two Chinese.
Oh, yeah?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Anyway, my experience with Christ, it's a long story. I grew up a Catholic, Roman Catholic. I was baptized when I was a baby. My mom and I have 3 sisters and a brother, and we all grew up as Roman Catholic. We went through all of the different sacraments. First is baptism, the second one is the communion, the third sacrament is confirmation. Communion is when you're in 3rd grade, elementary school. Confirmation is when you're in 6th grade. Confirmation means that you become a soldier in the army of Christ. And then there's the sacrament of marriage, which I have never taken part. I'm a bachelor. Never married. And then they have confession. In the Catholicism, you confess your sins, and the priest says, okay, you're forgiven, and say some prayers, and you're okay. And the next one is very important, the anointing of the sick. It used to be called the last rites when people are very sick. I received those twice. Okay, anyway, a quick part of, I didn't prepare what to say. I began to prepare something, and I said, I'm gonna just tell my story and let the Holy Spirit guide me. So, this is what I've done. I want to begin just by reading a verse from the book of Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew. It says, Jesus, it says, you will ever be hearing but never understanding. You'll ever be seeing but never perceiving. For this people's heart has become callous. They hardly hear with their ears, or their eyes are closed. They see, but they're not seeing. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their hearts. And then they will turn to me and I will heal them. Well, as a kid growing up in Catholic, I went to church every Sunday. My mom was a Sunday school teacher. My sisters were Sunday school teachers. They sent us to school. And I listened, but never really understood, When I would go to the service, even up to early manhood, I would go to church and then be looking at my watch, when is it going to be over? And I would even search for the shortest service. I remember we found a Catholic service at Loyola University Hospital. It's close to my home in Chicago. It was the fastest service in the world, 20 minutes in and out. I used to like that one. I'd go home quickly, but the pastor would speak, and it was like, okay, but I never really understood, but I would go because that's the way I was raised. Anyway, as my life progressed, I lived anybody, are you familiar with Ernest Hemingway? Hemingway, very famous American author. He wrote some classic. Are you familiar with Hemingway? Anyway, I equate my life as kind of like a parallel to Hemingway. He was a great author. He was a genius, a great author. But he was a wild man. He burned the candle at both ends. He worked hard at his profession, and he played even harder. And that was me. That was me. I grew up, and although I went through the motions of being a good Christian Catholic, I wasn't understanding what was going on. Okay, so anyway, I lived that life. The only difference was Hemingway had money. I don't have money. I had a kind of a rough time. I'll admit, I led a very sinful life when I was younger. I worked all over the world. I chased women and liked to drink and got in lots of fights. Trouble. Played sports, did everything. Yeah. And sometimes, you don't feel good about yourself now as you get older. So one day, my mom and dad both got very ill. My mom had the Alzheimer's disease and dementia. She couldn't recognize us. And my father had a couple of heart attacks, two strokes. And at the time, I was traveling and working abroad and doing projects. My specialty is geosynthetic lining systems. Basically, in America, we used to design and line hazardous waste landfills with plastic so that the groundwater would not get polluted. And abroad, we did the same thing in gold and diamond mines. I worked in Western Africa, and working in the gold and diamond mines, same thing, designing and lining these heat leach projects. So I would be out there working, and my brothers and sisters were taking turns helping my parents, because they were invalids. They could not. My mom was, again, she had dementia. My father had debilitating strokes where he was paralyzing. So when I would come home, I would work 3 months, and then we would get 1 month off. That was our contract when we worked over abroad. So a few times, instead of going home to Chicago, I'd go to Thailand and Amsterdam and make lots of trouble, do lots of sinful things. And then when I came home, I would take a turn. That would be my brothers and sisters' break. I would come home and take care of my parents for 1 month, and then they would be able to go on vacation or relax, because it was a big job. It was very, very difficult. It got to the point where when I was home, I was taking care of them, but I was also burning the candle at both ends, going out and making trouble, partying, and my father, he started to tell me, you were the one who made me have me. And it wasn't true. He had his heart attacks because that was in our family. But he was blaming me. He was telling me, you are the cause. You made me sick. What do you do? I was giving them a very hard time. So I said to myself, well, I better get out of here, because if this man happens to pass away, everybody's going to say it's my fault. And it wasn't. It was just sickness. But I don't know. Maybe I contributed to it. I don't know. My life was, you know, I'll tell you the truth. It wasn't a good life. It was, you know, St. Paul, I can't tell you where, but in the New Testament, St. Paul says, you know, I am the captain of all sinners. You know, I don't know where he said it, but it's in there. It's in the book. And if he's the captain, I was his assistant. Yeah, I was his lieutenant. You know, anyway. I decided, I said to myself, well, I better, you know, yeah, this is what brought me to Korea. I decided to, I was the grant manager for a childhood lead poisoning program in Chicago, and which was very rewarding. A social service, low-income people. We were helping poor people whose children were poisoned by lead in their homes. You know, so it was very rewarding. We finished our grant right at the time of 9/11. You know, the World Trade Center, with the terrible attack, the tragedy in the World Trade Center. Well, it was not advertised, but after that, America's government started taking money from the social service programs, and they were using that money to fund our military soldiers. You know, they sent people up to Iraq, Iran, everywhere. So these grants that were so important to helping poor people, not only social service, but not only the lead poisoning, but other grants, the money was getting lower and lower. And I went to Washington and I appealed to them. Continue this, it's so important. You know, all of in America, the government's outlawed no more lead paint in your homes, residential, in 1978. But the problem was all the homes in the big cities were built in the 1950s. And they were all painted with lead paint. And poor people don't have the money to maintain their home. They're trying to feed their children. They're trying to put clothes on their children. So, to make a long story short, these kids, young kids, like this one over here, they would go to their kindergarten. Part of the requirement was if you join school, you have to have an examination by a doctor. The doctors would take a blood sample, and if the child was found to be high in lead in their system, then they would, the health department would take care of the child, and my agency where I work for, we would try to find out what's poisoning these children. We had technicians that would go to the homes and they would search with X-ray refraction machine. They would search and find all of the lead paint hazards, and then we would contract companies to go in and make their homes lead safe. Yeah. So the money got diminished. The grant was suspended. I went to Washington with a group of other people to appeal to them. This is so important. We need this program to continue. It didn't work, it didn't help. It's going now, but at the time they suspended it because all of this money was needed for military stuff, you know. So anyway, that's when I decided to come to Korea. You know, my youngest sister is a school teacher, and she teaches middle school science. And she told me, I was thinking, I was talking to her, you know, I was not married, no kids, and I was in my 30s, late 30s. No responsibility, I could do anything. And she told me, she said, do you want to be a substitute teacher here in Chicago? I said, nah. I mean, Yeah, I mean, I could have taught at the community college because I have an advanced degree. Nah. She says, well, I have two people, my good friends, a husband and wife, they're teaching English in Korea. She says, why don't you contact them? You know, find out. So I sent them an email and they said, oh yeah, it's fun. They said it's fun, you can, it's very rewarding and it's fun. So I ended up coming to Korea as an English teacher. Yeah. I did that for a couple of years. And at first I taught elementary and middle schools. And it was a lot of fun, you know. It was much different than teaching university students. And when you teach university students, everybody's got their heads down, and you're talking, and people are on their, nowadays people are on their smartphones, and I'm trying to do a lecture, and other people are just, you know, with the kids it's fun, because you have to do a performance, you know, you have to make the class, and I like to tease them, and, teacher! You know, and we have fun. Well, anyway, I got a little bit tired of that, and I tried teaching at an adult institute, okay? I decided I'll give it adult teaching a try. So I changed, and it was nice. But the problem was that it was a long day. It was split. In the morning, I would come at 7 a.m. until 8:30 a.m., and I would teach all of the people who came on their way to work here in Korea. Then they'd go home, take a short nap, and come back at 10:30, because then the moms come. The kids are in school, the moms want to learn English. They would come. And then at 2 o'clock, you'd go home and take a nap, and you'd come back at 5 o'clock and catch everybody coming home, lots of students. Well, in the morning class was a free talking class. It was a discussion class. These were professional people who wanted just to talk English, to keep their skills sharp. They were doctors, lawyers, professors, businessmen who traveled abroad. They're Korean. They were fluent, and they wanted to keep their fluency, so they would come in and we would talk. We had different subjects, and we would have a free talking, you know. It was nice, you know. 7 a.m., and then they would all go to their jobs, you know. This is how I happened to meet. At the time, it was Mr. Kim. I didn't know he was a professor. But Mr. Kim. And we had a small group in the morning, and we would talk, and Mr. Kim, he was a good conversationalist, you know. He kept me interested. And we talk about everything. But his specialty is politics. Anyway, but I was also interested in Korean politics, you know, just to hear his opinion. Anyway, we became friends. More than student-teacher. We started talking about, you know, doing different things, and I found out he liked to hike. You know, in Korea, here in Korea, you have so many beautiful national parks. And in Seoul, you have one right in the middle of the city, Bukhansan, Bukhan National Park. It's the only place in the world where you have a huge city and a beautiful national park in the middle of it. And you like to go hiking? And I said, well, yeah, I'll give it a try too, you know. And he told me, he says, I know all the, I told him, I said, I don't know if I can, he said, don't worry, I know all the trails. He said, I'll take it easy on you first. So we started to go hiking, yeah. And we became more and more our friendship blossomed and grew. I found out that Professor Kim was a Christian. You know, I'm not here to recruit or I'm just here to tell you my story, that's all. So anyway, we would hike up the mountains, and when we take a rest, you know, I found out that he knew a lot about the Bible. So we would talk a little bit, and I would ask him questions because things that I needed to know. Because like I told you, I grew up listening to what the priest said, and I went to the Catholic school and to the Sunday school, but I never absorbed any of it. You know, it's just like bling. I look at the watch. Okay, go home and play. You know. So anyway, I have this. I went to a couple of services with them, and they weren't Catholic. In Christianity, there are so many different denominations, and they all have different rules. But you know, the way I look at it is, if you're a Christian, that's good. That's good. You know, that's and I know maybe some of you are not, but that's okay. That's okay. And there's always time. Anyway, we became good friends. This old Bible, see, this is my Bible. This is my prized possession. It's all beat up, it's torn up. I won't change. You know, my brother says, why don't you buy a new one? Well, all my notes are in it. So, you know, how can I buy a new one? This is my prized possession. So anyway, it was a gift from Professor Kim. Anyway, he told me one day, he says, you know, we were talking about, what I did for a living before, and my work experience, my qualification. And he said, why are you doing this? He says, why don't you come? He says, I'm a teacher. I said, yeah? Where? He says, Inha University. What's that? It stands for Incheon and University of Hawaii. Oh, really? Where? Oh, in Incheon. No, what do you teach? Then I found out he was a professor of mechanical engineering. Yeah. He says, I told him, he says, come to our school and I'll try to get you a job. I said, I don't know anything about it. He says, no, I'll introduce you to the English department there and see. I said, okay, let's go. You know, I got dressed up one day and got my resume together, and off we went. And we went there to Inha University. And I looked there, I said, this is a pretty big university. He says, yeah. He says, it's not Sky. What is Sky? Oh, you know, Sky. Everybody and all the Korean students want to attend Sky. Seoul National University, Korea University, or Yonsei University. Those are the three big ones. But I told him, this is maybe number 10, big school. And when I was working as an English teacher, I joined the baseball team here in Korea. And we had a few baseball games here. I didn't know it was Inha, but I remember the airplane. You know, where they trained, they had the airplane on the ground. That's where we played. Oh, I said, I know this play. Oh, he says, well, that's a technical school. Here's a big complex. You know? So we went there, and anyway, I had a nice interview with the faculty of the English department. And of course, there were no openings, and they said, thank you for your resume, and if we're going to thanks, but no thanks, you know. And then after you leave, they take your resume and trash can. So, Professor Kim told me on the way home, he said, don't worry. He says, me and my friend Dean Herb, Professor Herb, he says, we're working on a grant, you know. We're working on a big grant. If we get the money, we're going to make a class for you. And I said, oh, okay. You know, I thought, no way. To myself, I said, I was happy. I said, yeah, okay, good. And I thought it would never happen. I was just, about a year later, he calls me, he says, we got the money. We got the grant. Why don't you go interview with Dean Hur? He was the dean of the, what was it, bioengineering, biotechnology. So he was supposed to be here. He couldn't come. Yeah. Anyway, he was going to come here, but he couldn't. So I interviewed with him, you know, and it was a nice man, you know. I went in his office and it was like books piled to the ceiling, you know, a little trail. And there he was, sitting, you know, Professor Hur's office. So many books. It reminded me of some of my professors in the States, you know. You go into their office and it was just chaos, papers everywhere. But these guys knew where everything was. I don't know how. I had the interview with Dean Hur, and I came out and we were driving home. How did it go? He said, Professor Hakich. I said, it went nice. It went okay, you know. I'm very interested in the position. It was a lecture position, technical writing, and for graduate students, teaching technical writing in English. And he told me, he says, well, Professor Hur's got to do a few things. He's, you know, I don't have a PhD, but I have an advanced math. And he says, don't worry about it. He says, we're going to see what. And I told him about a week later, I called Professor Kim and I said, well, you know, maybe Professor Hur wants to interview other people. He, no. He says, you got the job if you want it. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, all right. So I started teaching at Inha. Okay. And now I know this is my background. I mean, you know, this will tie in. Just a moment, this will tie into my faith in a moment. I'm getting there. You know, you said 35 to 40 minutes, so I had to talk about something. So eat up some time. So anyway, I had 3 classes a week, 3-hour classes, which qualified me as a full-time lecturer there. And in my spare time, I proofread and edited all of the master's and PhD students and some professors, their research papers. They would, you know, the research papers, their experiments, they have to write them in English and send them to America or Canada or Europe to be published. Well, they would always come back because of grammar mistakes or terminology, you know. So I